course. I mean, the kelp is like a sponge for this stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you eat the fish that's obviously dosed. I'm not saying it's all going to kill you in a couple of weeks, but go ahead.
Whatever's left out there is full of radiation.
Whatever is left out there is loaded. That's right.
Right, because everything else has already been killed off.
That's right.
Bioaccumulation from direct results of it. And, cancers, like for the human population, just remind everybody, takes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years to manifest and get diagnosed and everything else. But there's 1,800 autoimmune deficiencies like diabetes and strokes and heart attacks, respiratory problems, Alzheimer's, dementias.
You got it.
Right, that are showing up and will have been heavily studied, will show up before cancers. And so that's the trick that everybody keeps forgetting, and I never really enforces enough for people. But the studies on the animals in particular, that's what it showed, that all of these are manifesting. But we only hear about studies on fruit flies. And
I know.
So that's never in the conversation that there's 1,000 laboratories at any given time killing animals throughout the country with radiation. Yeah. And it's not because they don't know. They've been doing it for 40, 50, 60 years, longer than that certainly. It's just that that's what they do. That's what their whole existence is predicated upon, is killing animals. So beagle dogs and beagle puppies with Dr. Raymond Gilmedy. There's many other institutions doing the exact same amount of dogs, the same ages, in separate experiments in order to, right? And in order to peer review that, you have to kill all these animals again. He's got 94 studies of the dogs. They all died in about 3 or 4 years from the exposures. So that's like 20 years, 25 years for humans. But that was just a single exposure. We're getting dosed all the time. And Jeff, like the bioaccumulating, as you know, if I drink Canada right now, the drinking water standards in Canada is around 10 becquerels for cesium. So if I got 10 becquerels of cesium in a liter of water, or 4 glasses of water, and I drink, say, 2 liters a day, say, for instance, well, that's 20 becquerels today. But tomorrow I got 40 becquerels. And the next day I got, it just keeps going, or 20 becquerels, next day 30, next day 40, next day 50, till the end of time. I'm adding these numbers up. But it's not just the cesium, it's all the other elements that they emit to.
There are over 200 that they don't talk about.
Right. And a couple of hundred that are really serious, that are definitely long-term ones.
Yeah.
They're going to be present at the same time in that liter of water. And so people don't understand that, and they're not able to wrap their mind around it. And that certain foods will increase those doses dramatically. You can't avoid water. But certain foods, like fish, it's just wrong to eat it at the ocean now, because the ocean is 70% of the planet, so 70% of the fallout is landing in the ocean. And that the species are all eating each other, and so they're massively, like if we eat a fish that's 3 years old right now, it's got 3 years of bioaccumulating. That's insanity.
Totally.
That's like drinking, hundreds of gallons of water instead of a liter each time you have fish. And that's the way people need to look at it. But it only takes one atom to give you the cancer or the autoimmune deficiencies down the road. But what about if you're getting dozens and hundreds a day coming into your system? We can tolerate it for a certain extended period of time, but then it catches up like it did with the dogs and the other animal studies. Yeah.
And the sad thing is, we'll have plausible deniability because of the time lag.
Right.
Well, you got cancer of the esophagus because of, who knows, some toxin. It wouldn't be radioactivity. No, anything but that. Radiation sensors reported in the Wall Street Journal in major U.S. cities. Okay, now think about this. This is your Environmental Protection Agency, the agency you would think would protect you. The Environmental Protection Agency, you're part of the environment, so you should get protected, okay? Here's the study. Here's the headline. Radiation sensors in major U.S. cities turned off because they don't work. What? See? Most stations run by EPA can't monitor for beta particles in real time, prompting criticism. Agency says monitoring for gamma rays is enough. Well, maybe. It's potentially arguable, I guess. A national radiation monitoring system enhanced after the September 11th attacks on 9/11, not 3/11, 9/11, isn't working as intended, says the story, with nearly 3/4 of stations not checking for a type of radiation in real time, including ones in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Now, what does this all mean? What it means is it's not good. I'm not sure if this is a sound story or what. Let's see. Yeah, let me back this up here. I want to hear what this guy has to say. Here we go. Hold on. Jeff with Dana Durnford. We're going to go through the break and listen to this YouTube video. Radiation sensors in major U.S. cities turned off because they don't work.
I have a big-time heads up here as radiation sensors in major U.S. cities are being turned off. They're stating that the reason why they're being turned off is because they supposedly do not work. I'm not buying that. Now, most stations run by the EPA can't monitor for beta particles in real time. This has prompted criticism. Agencies say that monitoring for gamma rays is enough. Now, this is very concerning to me, especially with obviously the Fukushima disaster that is still ongoing to this day. It's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. And of course, the Westlake landfill crisis that's ongoing right now, just outside of St. Louis, to where there's an underground fire smoldering about 1,000 feet away from illegally dumped nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project.
Massive.
This is right
waste.
outside of St. Louis. There's millions of people that could potentially be affected by this. There's people that already, I'm sure, are being affected by this, obviously. Now, if you come over here to Nuke Pro, it's nukeprofessional.blogspot, he breaks this down in great detail in regards to Fukushima, talking about how the EPA shut off the beta radiation monitors because strontium-90 is a beta-type radiation. And he says, after you read this, you're going to be pissed. You may want to take action. Here's the guy in charge. He leaves the contact details for Radiation Protection Division, Jonathan Edwards. If you feel so inclined, feel free to contact. Now, he breaks down how the strontium replaces calcium in your bones where the blood cells are made, and it stays there until you die, right here. So this is big time. And he shows here as well that Jonathan Edwards, he flip-flopped on the importance of the beta monitoring. He says that 2012 EPA report said that gamma monitoring wasn't sufficient to deal with the threat of strontium-90, which could cause large-scale public health impacts. I'm not going to have time to go over all this information. There's a lot of information here. For example, the Environmental Protection Agency officials confirmed 99 of its 135 beta radiation sensors in its RadNet system, which monitors all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico, aren't working and have been turned off. Officials blame electromagnetic interference from the sources such as cell phone towers and said that efforts to resolve the problem have been.
Oh my God, they're blaming cell phone towers. 99 out of 135 beta rad sensors in the RadNet system are now off. Okay? This is obvious what's going on.
Unsuccessful. Here's a map here of the active and the inactive radiation monitors all across the country. And you can see right here is roughly the area where this Westlake Bridge Lake landfill is. There's one that's active. There's one that's not active. I'm going to leave links for this. You guys can come check all this out. Now, he also breaks down right here how for just a few $1 million a year, this radiation monitoring system, which is automated for the most part, could be fully functional, up and running. You take into consideration that we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars funding Islamic radical terrorists around the world to destabilize other nations and topple governments. Hundreds of millions of dollars, and then the fat cats in Washington are lining their pockets. Oh my God! And then here we can't cough up a couple $1 million to run this radiation monitoring system. You got to be kidding me! It's my opinion that they don't want these things up and running. They don't want us to see what's going on. In fact, it's just a fraction of the budget. Just a fraction of the budget. So, yeah, they're dropping the ball on this one. I think intentionally. Like I said, there's a lot more information here. They're talking about beta spikes being recorded in Corvallis, Oregon. Very interesting. As well as a recent animal die-off on the coast of Mexico. There was a bunch of dolphins and turtles, and there's links. You guys come through, check it out. Again, I want to reiterate, they're shutting off the radiation detectors, okay? Some background information here on the Westlake landfill. This is the landfill that has an underground fire 1,000 feet away from nuclear waste that was dumped illegally from the Manhattan Project. And they state right here that in 73, leached barium sulfate residues originating from the Manhattan Project were combined with the topsoil and illegally dumped at the Westlake site. Due to the high concentration of radioactive material, Westlake was proposed to be a Superfund site. Okay, there you go. The landfill.
You can read all that. You folks are in the St. Louis area, hopefully are up to speed on that. You can check, just enter it. And Westlake landfill. Wikipedia has a pretty good piece on it. He's quoting from that. There are others out there. And then we had this thing in Las Vegas. Did you hear about that?
Hey, yeah, I did. I was just wondering, do they have warranties on those Geiger counters they're using? 99 of them goes down. You think that the company would be like, weird. Hey, send them back. We want to have a look at them.
Yeah.
There's 99.
That's the best way to control the data, make it go away. That's what they're doing.
Las Vegas?
This thing in Las Vegas is, they had an explosion of an underground nuclear dump, and it blew rotting, rusting 55-gallon barrels of radioactive waste up and out of the ground. It just belched them out of the ground, and it went right over the fence outside the compound. Now, this is near Las Vegas, and there was a big spike of radiation in Las Vegas right after this.
It's goes down 160 miles of highway because people were going to drive through. Drove through that before they closed it down, but they had said it was closed because of the flooding. Now they admit it was closed down because of the radiation.
Yeah.
But they also say that there was no harmful levels of any kind were found, just natural stuff, and yet they've been bombarding it with planes and helicopters with special equipment on it. There's special teams that came in from Reno. I read a lot on that. I watched the video on it. It's like a bubbling oil, Jed Clampett, where the oil is bubbling out of the ground. That's what this stuff was doing. Then it would detonate and send it up 300 or 400 feet was our estimate at my place. Sure. And so it was, like you say, it was going right over the fence, right all over the highway. And any cars driving through was picking it up, and that was going up into the wheel wells.
Wasn't that the main road from Las Vegas to Reno?
I'm not sure. It was a very popular road, and it closed down 160 miles of it. It contaminated that whole 160 miles, I guess, from traffic before they closed it, right?
Oh, yeah.
They closed it down. And they told people it was a flood. Once again, they now admit they don't know what's in the ground. They said very shoddy records were kept, of course. And we know what these people were like back then. They were dumping it like it's inconceivable. Now we find out 45-gallon drums were blasted across the highway.
55.
55-gallon drums. And that people only a couple stayed. The rest of them ran away. Because they understood it wasn't just transgenic waste. It was high-level spirit out there. This is what they do. And it was a private company that owned it, and he went bankrupt. And so the government was like, "Well, private company owns it. I don't see why we should have to go and clean it up." Well, they created it and created that mess and gave it to him in the first place so they wouldn't have to clean it up, so they wouldn't have to touch it. And so in order to get around the rules and regulations, and they've been doing that ever since. They've been doing that before that since they've been at the industry. And the whole country is a wasteland at this stage from that.
Yeah. Oh, this didn't go away. It just moved east, and it settled down all around the area of the explosion. And in Las Vegas, the radiation spike on October the 18th is just off the charts. You can look at E&E News and see this. It's I'm not sure if the left. What is the left graph? 115 to 205. Is that CPM? Do we know?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Don't know what it is.
I haven't seen it.
Here's a radioactive dump that burned in Nevada had past troubles. This is New York Times.
Great.
State officials said this week they didn't immediately know what blew up there. A fire inspector from the state, Martin Azevedo, surveyed the site Wednesday. I wonder how he was dressed. Hazmat? His report, obtained Friday by the AP,